listen, I don't want any more bullshit.
Well, here we are, bullshit-free gang. Here we fucking are. 2 weeks in, the Colts dropped a weird, strangely, somehow entertaining game to an incredibly good team, the Los Angeles Rams. And here we fucking are. 2 weeks in, we're 0-2. Carson Wentz's ankle is injured. Jacob Eason comes in and looks like the fucking reincarnation of Curtis Painter. And all I can ask is the only question any reasonable, logical, rational Colts fan can ask. Where the fuck do we go from here? I have no fucking idea. But there is another more ominous question looming in the air, the elephant in the room, and you know me, I'm gonna ask it, since nobody else seems willing to ask it. 2 weeks into the season, with Tennessee on the docket next week, and possibly Jacob Eason as our starting quarterback, is our fucking season over right now? Well, look, you know how we do. We're going to recap this rough-ass loss against the Rams and answer that question and much more. But before we jump into that, let me be a good host and welcome you back, or if it's your first time here, welcome you to my friend, the one, the only, the number one uncensored NFL podcast in the world, often imitated but never duplicated, uncensored, unfiltered, and always controversial, the bullshit-free Colts podcast. The only podcast you can find in the world where you're going to hear all things relevant, all things interesting, and all things critical that need to be talked about our beloved Indianapolis Colts. But here, baby, you're going to hear it with no coach speak, no political correctness, no PR, no spin, and most importantly, 100% without any fucking bullshit. I'm your host, Harkana Jala, at your motherfucking service as always. And look, let's jump right into this because there is a lot to unpack in this game and a lot to look at in terms of what this loss means for our season and the things that happened in this loss. So let's jump into it. But before we do, I'm going to do this really quickly. I know if you're listening right now, if you're still listening right now, because as you can see in the comments sometimes, any sissy soft motherfuckers have long since clicked off of this. You feel me? So if you're still listening right now, you are 100% undoubtedly a pimp. So I'm asking you really quick to take your pimp ass finger and click the like button below. It will help the algorithm to share this podcast with other cool ass, diehard, bleeding blue Colts fans like yourself who will appreciate and enjoy it. And while you're doing that, make sure you share this with somebody else you know would like it. Make sure you're subscribed. Click that little bell so you get all of the notifications. Because I hear every week, man, I didn't even know you had a new podcast out. I didn't get the notification. Make sure you click that bell. And then, of course, last but not least, below, if you like what we're doing, you can donate. There are 3 different ways. You can send your boy $20, $10, $15, $5, $1. Doesn't matter. Anything helps. And also, by popular demand, I have created a private VIP Patreon for the Bullshit Free Colts podcast that you guys can join, and you can get all the good shit that's extra, some of it that is even too hot to put on YouTube. But there's really some awesome stuff that we've got planned to give to you guys. So make sure you click the button below, join the Patreon. With that, we're going to get on to what we got to talk about today because this is some real shit. All right? So sit back, strap in, buckle up, and as y'all love to hear me say, let's chop it the fuck up. All right, you know what? Like I always do, I went back and rewatched this game. I actually rewatched this game a couple of times because I think you would agree with me, if nothing else. This was a really crazy, weird, strange game, right? It's a game you got to watch again because, like, it starts off looking like it's going to be another unqualified fucking disaster like last week, right? The Colts get the ball, they go right down the field, they get to the half-yard line, and then they have 4 successive fucking tries to get a half yard and score the first touchdown of the game, and they cannot do it. To make matters worse, they give up a 10-yard sack on the last play of the series. And you're like, oh, holy fuck, here we go. Right? But from there, and especially when you rewatch this game and you already know what the outcome's going to be, so your emotions aren't quite as engaged, so you're able to really kind of see it for what it is. After that first drive, I'm going to tell you something that is going to probably surprise the hell out of you. Everything that happened after that first fucked up series from the half-yard line where they don't score a touchdown makes me feel very fucking optimistic about what this team can actually be this year with a little luck. Now, of course, that means not having any catastrophic injuries, right? I'm very, very encouraged by what I saw. Now, there is a caveat to that, obviously, but we're going to get to that in a second. So, I'm sure you're saying, what in the fuck are you talking about, Harkine? Right? So let me definitely explain to you. So let's start off with all the things in this game that make me say that make me say, actually, I'm really fucking encouraged by what I saw. So let's detach from our emotions and let's look at this realistically. All right. First off, let's start with the opponent. Okay. In case you didn't notice, this wasn't the fucking New York Jets that they were playing. Okay. This LA Rams team is built for business, homie. And in all honesty, they're without a doubt going to be one of the best teams in the NFL this year. I think they look better than Kansas City has looked thus far. I think Kansas City's in real danger of giving up that title. The Seahawks look outstanding. Now, they fucking laid an egg to Tennessee in the second half yesterday. Really shit the bed, so got to hold the phone on that one, right? But, man, the Rams, they look amazing. You see what the fuck they did last week to the Bears? So, again, let me give you a little context, homie. This is the number one defense in the league last year that the Colts were facing. And the Colts put up 24 points against them, including, 2 red zone trips where the Colts got 0 points. The best defensive player in the league is Aaron Donald. He definitely made some plays yesterday. He made a couple of big ones. Did he really kill that entire shuffle pass that Carson Wentz threw, ended up being an interception? That was all Aaron Donald, sorry. If Aaron Donald doesn't fuck that up, that's an easy touchdown. Easy shuffle pass touchdown, and maybe we're having a different conversation today. So he made impact yesterday, as great players like him, one of the greatest to ever play the game, will always do. But for the most part, he was fucking kept in check. Shout out to Big Q. Every time Big Q was matched up with Aaron Donald, he was handling that motherfucker. I'm being real. I'm not being biased. Go look at the tape. Big Q was on his fucking game yesterday. But like I said, that defense is no fucking joke, man. That Rams defense, they were the number one in the league overall last year, and it looks to me like they're going to be again this year. Now, before we, go too far on that side of the equation, that Rams offense, that ain't the old Jeff George Colts offense that couldn't score a touchdown for like 7 straight games. That offense is fire. And, other than a couple of drives where the Colts back in got out of sorts, got played out of their fucking shoes. Other than 2 drives that were easier than they should have been, the Colts defense held them down. I mean, they held them to 27 points, okay? Against a team like that, that's enough to win, and it was enough to win yesterday. Now, let's talk in specifics about the Colts. Starting with my dude, Carson Wentz. I'm going to tell you what, Carson Wentz plays like a fucking man with balls. I'm thoroughly impressed with Carson. I had no idea. I knew he was mobile. I had no idea he was as mobile and shifty and elusive as he was. Without Carson Wentz in there yesterday, that's a 12-sack game all day. You can book that. Carson consistently made plays that a lot of quarterbacks, there's only maybe 5 quarterbacks in the league, could make yesterday. And some of his best plays were just being able to throw a ball away instead of taking a 12-yard sack. But he placed the ball well. He was very accurate, great touch on the ball when he was able to throw, of course. Man, Carson Wentz, he's got me like fucking sunshine in Harlem Nights. I'm like, Carson, I think I'm falling in love with you. This dude, look, if the fucking team around him gets their shit together, he can take the Colts where they want to go based on the first two games. Keep in mind, the dude has never even played a down with this offense before his first play last week. You think they're not going to get smoother? You think they're not going to get on page with each other? Good things coming there. I already talked about Big Q. Big Q did very well yesterday. Michael Pittman Jr. Remember I told you guys I expect him to have a big breakout season this year? 8 catches, 123 yards yesterday, or maybe 132, something like that. Had a 42-yarder. Beautiful play. Consistently was getting open. Finally, we're seeing some guys getting open yesterday. Pittman Jr. looked great. The defense had a turnover. The special teams created a turnover and turned it into a touchdown yesterday. Like I said, other than those 2 fucked up drives, the defense played well yesterday. Darius Leonard making more impact, game-changing plays. That's what we pay him for. I watched like the linebackers yesterday, Okereke in particular, looked like he knew what the hell he was doing again. And they were much better against the run yesterday as well. They gave up some runs, but they were a lot more solid against the run yesterday. And once they kind of got their groove going against that Rams offense, they were giving the Matt Stafford machine some problems. Now, what I wasn't happy with was there was not enough pressure from our defensive line. But again, we did see Defoe Buckner making plays as he always does, but the rest of those guys did not get enough pressure. That being said, we do need to keep in mind that what we saw yesterday is probably the best offensive line in the league too for the Rams. Y'all got to remember something. The Rams, this is 100% all in for them. Like, they are all in. They are in salary cap hell in a year or two. They know that. Like, they're putting all their fucking chips in the middle of the table trying to win it all this year. So they've gone all in on their roster, made trades, done all kind of shit. They're a hell of a team, no doubt about it. So when you take a Colts team where you got a bunch of people who, haven't played together, you got major injuries to major players. No T.Y. Hilton. No Paris Campbell. No Braden Smith at right tackle. No Xavier Rhodes. Right? I mean, you got your right tackle that's out. You got your number 1 cornerback that's out. You got your number 1 receiver that's out. I mean, that is fucking crippling. Especially, again, for an offense with a brand new quarterback and, people trying to get on pace, on the same page. But look, you take a Colts team like that coming in injured with some major injuries and what have you, and they play probably the best overall team in the league to a standstill, and we're in position to win, could have, and maybe we can even say should have won that game. That's fucking encouraging. Here's another thing. Eric Fisher coming off a torn ACL, or is it Achilles? Whatever it is, yeah, torn Achilles. First game in months with a brand new team, brand new offensive line mates, like a week of practice. Eric Fisher looked damn good. So you see, when that line's back together, we should expect that we'll get elite line play again. I give a shout out to Luke over at For the Culture podcast. As he said on Twitter, and he's right, we've had 3 years of elite offensive line play. We've only had 2 games of trash offensive line play. So it's only logical to expect that when you add Eric Fisher in and everybody's back healthy, Ryan Kelly's still a little hobble, you can see that. But when they're all back together and healthy, we should be able to expect elite offensive line play again. So all things considered, I was very encouraged. Like, the team that we had out there yesterday probably would have beat 25, 26 of the other teams in the league. But, first 2 weeks, you had the fucking Seahawks and the Rams. It is what it is. What can you do about it? But now we got to get to the caveat. We got to get to the shit that worries me. Really worries me. Some worrying things that are still there. Little nagging shit that's still there. And some big shit too. That worries me and makes me say, like, where do we go from here? Number one, the offensive line was still looking like Swiss cheese yesterday. What is it? 10 quarterback hits and 3 or 4 sacks? They've given up like 18 quarterback hits. Hits, not pressures. 18 quarterback hits in 2 games. And what? 7 sacks? And if you'd had fucking Eason in there or what's Phil Rivers, like Philip Rivers would literally be at we'd be talking about his funeral right now. Like there'd be 20 sacks easy if one of those guys were playing. The reason there aren't more sacks because Carson Wentz, quite frankly, is a fucking magician back there. He's very impressive at getting away from pressure. I'm really, and I'm also happy to see that he's not forcing big mistakes after getting out of the pressure like he was doing last season. Anyway, that offensive line got to get the fuck together. Real talk. And, I'm more confident that they will get it together than I am about the second thing that I think is a big thing that really bothers me. And that's Frank Reich. I mean, here we go again. The people in the Patreon will see I actually did a breakdown video of that first goal line drive that the Colts had and why the play calling was so bad. Like, this is something that's become a clear pattern. Even Reich himself is saying after games now, yeah, I probably should have done that. He's like, today he's like, when I look at it, I probably should have quarterback sneaked it on 3rd down. Do you fucking think, homie? You think you needed to see film to see that? You got fucking film real time on the sidelines, dude. Anybody could see that. People were 8-year-old kids were calling for that from the stands. They're sitting 500 feet away. What the fuck? A touchdown there could have possibly won the game for the Colts. This shit can't continue. Okay, but here's an even bigger thing, an even bigger issue that really concerns me about this. And again, it's directly related to Frank Reich. Listen, we're trying to win a Lombardi, right? This year, we're trying to take that next step as a team for the Colts to become a true contender. They have the roster to be able to do it. Period, end of story. Especially now that the question mark, the big question mark at starting quarterback seems to have been answered. They have what they need. But here's the thing. To do that, to be a real contender, you got to be able to beat good teams. And when you play good teams, generally, it's going to be a close game, right? It's going to be a close game. And to win those games, you got to make some plays. But as Tony Dungy used to always say, Hall of Fame coach, by the way, you can't beat yourself. Okay? You can't beat yourself. If you're going to be beaten, let the other team beat you. Don't lose the game. And this Colts team, every week, going back into last season, we're having these games where it's like, oh, they were right there. They woulda, coulda, shoulda beat that team. Think about the playoff game in Buffalo last season. And yet, they find some way to make little mistakes here, there, just dumb fucking mistakes. Somebody jumps offside on, 4th and 29 or whatever, when you know they're not going to snap it. Little mistakes. A mess up here, a drop pass there, somebody runs the wrong route, somebody, makes a dumb penalty, etc., etc. Finding ways to lose. And that harkens back to the head coach. Real talk. That harkens back to the head coach. Fair or unfair, who the fuck else are we going to blame? That's what his job is. Now, let me ask you this. If Bill Belichick was coaching this team, do you think they'd have made the mistakes they made last year in the playoff game against the Buffalo Bills? Or the mistakes last week that ended up costing them the game against the Seahawks? Or the mistakes this week that cost them the game against the Rams? fuck no. You know that's the answer. Any great coach, Tony Dungy, any great coach, you tell me that a team is going to continue to make little mistakes that cost them big games year after year. That's a problem. That's a problem. And look, I like Frank Reich as a guy. I think he has he has the intelligence and the insight and experience to be a great head coach. But he's got to fucking become one. You know what I mean? It's been 4 years. When's it going to happen? Is he getting 1% better every day? Is that what it looks like to you? Because it looks to me like he's fucking regressing. Play calling yesterday was better as the game went on. But still, man, on the goal lines, the play calling was fucking atrocious. Atrocious. Don't make it hard when it's not hard, dude. When you're inside the red zone, that's when it's easiest. It's supposed to be easier then. You know, not when you're 80 yards away. When you're a half yard from the goal line, don't make it fucking hard, bro. It can't be hard there. You're paying an offensive line $100 million fucking dollars a year. You got to get that figured out, Frank. Or, dude, your head's going to roll. Because, as I said at the beginning of this thing, we got to look at the big elephant in the room. Okay? 0-3 is staring us in the face right now. Number one, because we got to go on the road, play a division rival that's a good team in Tennessee. Number two, like if Carson Wentz can't go and Jacob Eason starts, we're done. It's a wrap. We're going to lose that game. There's a 95% chance we lose that game. Because as I said, Jacob Eason, he has a great arm. He may become a very good quarterback. Could maybe even become a starting quarterback at some point in the future, but he is not fucking ready right now, homie. He is trash right now. I'm not saying it's his fault. He hasn't played in 2 fucking years. He now has 2 plays in the regular season of the NFL. So I'm not necessarily saying it's all his fault. I'm just saying he ain't ready. And the fact that he's the backup now proves something I'm going to talk about in the next video. And I'll see if you guys agree with me about how Ballard really views where the team is. But we'll get into that into the next video. All right. Frank, 0-3 is staring you in the face, dude. And if we go 0-3, your fucking seat is going to get high. I don't give a fuck if Irsay gave him a extension at the beginning of this year or not. I'm telling you, if this season goes down the shitter, he's going to be on the hot seat. Particularly if it goes down the shitter the way it has been, which is little mistakes and this and that. Remember, he wanted Carson Wentz. Now, if Carson can't play, it's not really his fault, but it is what it is. Let's all hope to God, Allah, Buddha, whoever you pray to, Yahweh, that Wentz can go this week, because the Colts got to have this game. Like, this is the fucking Super Bowl already 3 weeks in. The Colts got to have this game. You get this game, you're tied 1-2 with Tennessee. You have the tiebreaker, so you'll actually be ahead of them with the next game against them here in Indianapolis. You can get back on a roll. The good news about losing to the Rams and the Seahawks is they're in the NFC. They're not in our division. It really doesn't affect us in our division at this point because nobody's run away with it. Nobody's 3-0 or anything like that. We win this game against Tennessee, we're right back in the saddle. And if we can get people back and get shit on track, they can still have a great season this year. But if they lose this game against Tennessee, really effectively, this fucking season is over. Tennessee will technically have a 2.5 to 3 game lead. Oh, yeah. And starting 0-3, there's almost no chance they're going to get into the playoffs as a wild card. So it's fucking do or die right now. Real talk. So for Frank, I mean, I hate to say it, but if Eason like every game Carson Wentz misses, I said this on Twitter, every game he misses at this point is going to be a loss for the Colts. That's how I see it. I hope I'm proven wrong if he can't go. I hope Frank can pull a masterful coaching performance out of his ass if Carson can't go because this thing's going to get fucking ugly. You think fans are yelling for his head now? This thing goes down the shitter, it's going to get fucking ugly. Super ugly, as Jay-Z would put it. You feel me? Y'all let me know what you think. Am I right? Am I jumping ahead? Am I just being a doomsayer? Look, I told you guys, from what I saw with Carson Wentz in the lineup, assuming everything gradually gets better every week, as I think it will, I feel very confident and very optimistic that they can still be a great team this season if they get that win against Tennessee this Sunday. Feel me? If he doesn't play, I think it's a fucking wrap, and I hate to say that. But again, y'all let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts. I hope y'all can convince me I'm wrong. I hope I'm proven wrong if Carson can't go. I don't care if they win 2-0. They just need a win. But y'all let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I'm really looking forward to hearing about it. And let's see what happens this Sunday, because it's do or fucking die. 3 weeks into the season, and here we are. All right? I appreciate y'all. I will see y'all in the next one. I'm going to say to you now what I say to every coach, player, or front office person who might be watching, and some of them do because they hit me up. Let's pull this shit together. Let's bring in a fucking witch doctor or Mr. Miyagi to put that fire bowl shit over Carson Wentz's ankle and get him right so he can play Sunday. Let's get back on track. You motherfuckers play like we know you can, and let's go out this year and win another fucking Lombardi, baby. Peace. And win another fucking Lombardi, baby. And win another fucking Lombardi, baby. And win another